Mike Perlak here to talk to you. I'm going to talk to you about what Christmas means to me. Santa didn't come to our house when I was a child. In retrospect, that makes sense to me. That does. I think any saint would want to avoid a home where my male feminist father held dictation. I think any saint would want to avoid such a home as that, like the plague. A saint might have God's power to back them up, but they don't necessarily have God's power indefinite. So it makes sense to me. So Santa didn't come to our house when we were kids growing up, me and my two sisters. We had to get in the car and drive 1 hour and a half out of state to my grandmother's house, where a tree with presents from other family members awaited us. At this time in our life, my mom had weekend visits. If I remember correctly, most of the time we would visit with my mom the week before Christmas, or the weekend before Christmas, or maybe the weekend after. I think most of the time it was the weekend before Christmas. But I was a child, so I don't remember exactly. But I remember we would only get to visit my mom like 2 or 3 times a year, basically Christmas, once in the summer, and maybe birthdays. But a fact that I admit I would be a little bitter about until I, too, became a member of the workforce in America. And then I understood. When I first started my channel a couple years back, I have one video on there with my kid sister Shannon on there. That was at a time in my life when I was investing every Saturday almost that I had off. I didn't have to work or anything. And I was investing that time with my kid sister. So that kind of gave me a personal perspective of what it might have been like for my mother. Because I, too, have to work for a living. So I admit, until then, I was a little bitter, angry at my mom, the limited relationship we had with her at that time in our life. But speaking of bitterness, my grandmother, my father's mother, would always express her own bitterness about any toy my mother bought us, myself or my sisters. Her would be like, "Oh, so she bought you that thing, huh?" What the hell? Jeez. My recollection of some of the coolest toys I owned as a child were from my mom. Not that I got to play with them very much under my self-involved male feminist father's household authority. But I'll just real quick go down the list of ones I do remember. I had this robot Tyrannosaurus Rex my mom bought me when I was a kid. You'd flip it, you put batteries in it, you flip a switch, this thing would walk, the eyes would light up red. Coolest thing in the world when I was a child. I remember these two bad arses my father would let hang around, smoke cigarettes and stuff. I won't use their last name, but Dennis and his brother John. My father would let them come over, and John had a 50-pounder boom box that he found in the garbage. Anyways, they'd like smoke cigarettes and blow smokes. Look like it's coming out of the mouth of this T-Rex toy I had. So that was one toy. Another toy I remember was this monster puppet in a cage thing that I had. A keyboard, which, oh God, I still wish I had that keyboard. And after the authorities took me and my sisters away from our father, I got an NES. She got me my NES, which I still own to this day. But I wanted the challenge set because it had Mario Brothers 3. And my mom couldn't understand that. She's like, "Get this one. It's got the gun." Because of Duck Hunt. Now, years later, I would actually garbage pick a second NES, which I still have until this day. I used to go around with the garbage man when I was 13, 14 years old. So I garbage picked a second NES, which happened to have the original Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt in the cartridge in the player. And then a couple years after that, I went to this secondhand video game place called Funkoland and found a gun. So if I wanted to, I could stop recording right now and play Duck Hunt. For those of you that might think I'm talking out my arse right now. Anywho, moving on. What Christmas means to me. So anyways, Santa Claus didn't come to our house. We had to drive an hour and a half to my grandmother's house on Christmas Day. And that night we go to an uncle of mine's house and have dinner and open presents there. In a systematic format, they would record it, because my uncle had a video camera. This was the early 80s, so not very many people had a video camera. I'm thankful, because now I got all that footage of me growing up. I suppose at some point I might share some of it on this platform. Anyways, so after that, we'd go back to my grandmother's house, and we would spend the night, because by then it was too late to go home. I remember one year, my father was hell-bent on going back to the house, taking that hour and a half drive, despite how late it was, because he had more power and control there. I distinctly remember one year as a child, going to the bathroom and literally praying that whatever, that we'd get to stay. And there was a reason for this. There was a reason. Because in my entire childhood, you know that safe, secure feeling you feel in childhood, that nothing in the world could hurt you, you were protected from anything? I got to have that feeling one day, one morning out of the whole flunking year of my entire 6 years of living under the authority of a male feminist loser, my father. And that was the day after Christmas in the morning. That was the only time in my entire childhood that I felt that feeling of security. My grandmother, I put her on a little bit of a pedestal because I was a child. I didn't understand finances. I assumed she knew what she was doing, although, well, just keep watching. But that next morning, I remember, she'd be cooking breakfast. She'd turn the news radio on in the kitchen softly, and we would listen to the news radio calmly. And this was before activists. This was before journalists were really activists disguised as journalists and yelled the news at you. This is back when they actually there was some sort of credibility. Some sort of credibility with people delivering the news. Of course, there was always commentary, personal, commentaries and news shows, of course. But the difference is CNN is just one 24/7 commentary, nonstop, not real news. That's the difference compared to now. But so that was the one morning in my entire childhood that I got to feel that feeling as a child that you feel of such security that nothing in the world could hurt you. And the day after Christmas, that morning, was the only time in my childhood, once a year, I got to enjoy that feeling. As I said, I put my grandmother on a pedestal because I was a child. I didn't understand a lot about the world. But in the years after her death, I did figure out something. This woman paved the way for my sisters and mine suffrage in that house for 6 years. Something I've already talked about this on this channel. For something I would have anger towards her for in the past. But I forgave her and moved on. And because she's human, she did the best she could as a female in the time that she had. I didn't live her life, so I had no way of understanding her perception of the world around her or her perception of the situation as a whole. That having been said, though, I truly wish my aunts on my father's side were still alive. I truly do. I would have loved it if just one of them were watching my content on this platform and giving their point of view on it all. on all this, even if it wasn't on the video itself in private, not because I think I would agree 100% with them, but because the line of communication would have been nice. Maybe a little helpful. Sorry about the lighting, folks. I turned on an additional light. Maybe it'll help. But unfortunately for me, both of my aunts on my father's side passed away. One of a heart attack, the other one a few years later of cancer. I know one of them, the one I didn't really have a real strong personal relationship with her, but I know one of my aunts fought like hell to stay in school when she was younger to achieve a standard of living that not all of my family members enjoyed. A music teacher of a sort. Honestly, I don't know for sure what she did for a living. I don't know. But it just would have been nice, maybe a little helpful, in getting their perspective about the 6 years of suffrage me and my sister suffered at the hands of a spoiled brat, my male feminist father. It would have been nice to be in a position to get their perspective on it. In the grand scheme of things, I don't know, maybe survival of the fittest. Things are only going to get worse before they're going to get better. We still got another year of this puppet dictatorship administration that we're living under right now. But maybe it does come down to survival of the fittest. I'm okay with that. That is definitely my goal here going forward. Another thing I recalled about this aunt is I recorded stuff with a camcorder when I finally had a job and could buy my own camcorder, like my uncle, who bought a camcorder in the early 80s when they were super expensive. And I recorded a cousin of mine wedding. And I just remember this aunt's reaction to it. And my other aunt, her sister, saying that she wanted me to give her the videotape so they could erase the footage of this aunt because she was worried about my father finding her. Family secrets. Nobody talks. What can I say? But apparently there was some sort of confrontation with my father, her brother, when they were younger. Over the years, I've gotten bits and pieces through conversations over the years where something happened, something to the extent where he, I guess, hit her when she was pregnant. Okay? So, you know firsthand, you suffered firsthand, you know what this creature, my male feminist father, this monster is capable of. You're not worried about the fact that now 3 kids, 3 instant lives are living under his authority? Now, one could argue that my mother is guilty of that too, but it's not my mother's fault that my father could never be a real man. And I guess at the end of the day, it's not my aunt's fault, his sister's, that it's not her fault that my father was not capable of being a real man. Sorry about the lighting here, folks. I don't know what the hell's going on. But maybe it really does come down to survival of the fittest. I know I'd rather be dead than become a ward of the state, like several of my family members are, my father included. I do think the human race would fare better after some thinning of the herd. Yeah, some thinning of the herd. I think a certain group of weaklings can get in line first as far as I'm concerned, due to fear of having this video taken down. I won't say who exactly, but let's just say when these folks are gone, the profit margin of the FDA and cartels in this world will suffer some losses. Yeah. I don't know why, but the song and video All Coming Back to Me Now by Celine Dion was showing and playing in my head today. I don't know if you remember the video, but the dude in the that the girl apparently is singing about and head over heels in love with dies in a motorcycle crash. A good thing, too, because now she was able to keep her primitive female fantasy alive. And it got me thinking of another example of hypocrisy of modern feminism. Not all, but I would argue most modern feminists don't believe in God. Well, because, I mean, if you believe in God, you have to assume that there might be some repercussions for, terminating innocent life. There might be some repercussions for such an action. But, yeah, so I would argue most modern feminists don't believe in God. But they expect a man to be God or God-like. Personally, I really hope God is the embodiment of feminine strength, power, love, and all that. Because these earthly females suck. Of course, if you got a cute one who honors and respects you as a man, hey, God bless you, buddy, because that's the best you're going to do in this world. And now for some comedy. Oh, as I mentioned in my last video, my father is in jail again. And just before I started recording, just before I hit record, I got another collect call from correctional facility. I just hung up. Yeah, from now on, you got problems, talk to God about your problems, boy. That's what I have been forced to do all my life. Don't bother calling me because I won't answer the phone anymore. My father basically is living in this. It's basically a home for ex-gangsters. It's for who are now retired. Basically, men who spent their whole lives thinking very highly of themselves. But I don't think the boy would feel at ease if he wasn't spending a night in a cell from time to time. Oh, God. All right. Jesus, this is going on too long. Okay, so back to what Christmas means to me. I used to be the type of person that didn't like Christmas. But that's not really accurate. It's not that I didn't like Christmas. I mean, of course I was a kid. I like getting toys and presents and all that. I didn't truly understand what Christmas was really all about. Of course, going to family, going to my uncle's for dinner every Christmas was an awesome diversion from my day-to-day life with my male feminist father under his abusive control. That's it. His mental, emotional, and physical abuse. All three. But the worst was the mental. That was the worst. Being stuck in his limited mental capability. Oh God, I gotta end this. So, what Christmas means to me. Like most things in my life, Christmas means survival. Letting go and letting God. Letting God make whatever God wants to come to pass and just hope and pray that I can be there in the aftermath. There to help who and where I can with whatever I still may have. That's what Christmas means to me. Mike Paralak, thank you for your time. And if you're still here after 17 minutes, Merry Christmas.